Series 93, 125, items 1 through 39. Oh, I know I keep using examples pulling out attorneys, such as recently said something about the public safety concerns that many civilized jurisdictions had passed laws, for instance, against snake handling or touching attorneys. I keep pulling out attorneys because it's sort of the hip thing to do, and I figured everybody could get it. But I should point out, I could quite easily, justifiably so, instead of attorneys, I could be using dentists, bankers, bartenders, cops, psychologists, insurance agents, admin, salesmen of all kinds. I just wanted to make that clear. Oh, and also, the person who mailed in this anonymous, well, at any rate, the person that sent in the blackmailer, that sent in those photographs, the point was, I got it and I looked at them, and since it is the holidays coming up and I'm going to have to be doing some kind of gift shopping anyway, what I thought was, since you've got the negatives, how about go ahead and send me, like, I guess maybe a dozen wallet size, the one from the woods of me and the three girls in the back of that Cadillac pickup, and then maybe, oh, I don't know, maybe 6, 8 by 10 by that real beautiful girl, the one that was just me and her, the one that had on the purple sweatshirt. Just. And now this special feature, how to be perfect. First, make a list of all the things it'd take to make you perfect, then do them. If you want to sell people some or own some useless shit, act real sincere. And this applies to whatever field you could mention. After a personal study of the differences between the two spheres of wants and needs as applied to physical hunger, one man finally reflected, quoting, "You can respond to the stomach's call by either making it full or making you satisfied." He paused and asked himself if there was not a like situation in regards to the feeding of his mind, but then decided there was not. To what end, he later thought, should a wolf nourish the trap from which he wishes to extract his foot? Having a good slogan or an impressive statement of purpose can definitely help hide a complete lack of any talent, ability, or creativity. Just look at the public institutions around you upon which you ordinarily depend. The professor so professed. It is only those trapped between Akron and Fort Wayne who ever claim that a man can be too clever for his own good. And a student raised his hand and the question, "Sir, by the phrase trapped between Akron and Fort Wayne, do you really intend to say men caught twixt believing that some are too smart and themselves not enough?" If you do get lucky and go down one of those unlisted side streets, you might find yourself right up against getting to consider it in this manner. Men find life serious for one of two possible reasons. One, that life has made man serious, or two, that life has made man take life seriously. Either one of which is no actual answer inasmuch as they're both just restatements of the inquiry itself. Isn't that neat? Isn't that sweet? Isn't that just like life? A man with a suit, a tie, and some warts recently removed from his nose stood center stage in the village square and proclaimed to the people assembled, "Why should we defame our ancestors?" And a voice shouted back, "Well, they insulted us by having us." And the king told the high sheriff to go down there and break it up. If a man knew the winning lotto number but realized that no one else could count that high, why would he bother to even try and tell anyone about it? This rhetorical query has more to do with morality, respect, and tradition than it does gambling. Question for the day, for our times. What does a truly civilized man have to be upset about anyway? Right? But does that stop him? Come to think on it, perhaps this is a sign of an uncouth, crude man. One who will accept what seems obviously so. No matter the actual locale of your physical dwelling place, no matter your correct present address, and no matter where you may dream of moving to, what you most passionately think about, pleasant or otherwise, is where you live. This is also your most ready access out of there. Politics. Professional wrestling with participants of lesser physical conditioning and acting of a much poorer quality. The sole remnant of a certain failed religion on this other world is a scrap of paper that says when you die, if you're not more conscious, you'll be shot. One intergalactic space bomb claims that what a man attempting the extraordinary needs is help. But a better notion would be that he needs to make extraordinary efforts. And the bomb retorts, just wait till you die, you'll get yours. As he sat up on a high hill looking out and reflecting on mortal affairs as he found them, one man thought, why is it that it is the most common, untalented, pedestrian at best of men who believe that life is somehow on the prowl to snatch from them the many gifts and abilities they dream of but do not actually possess? And life broke into his reverie saying, why don't you mind your own business if you've got any? A certain intellectual probing via a questioning dialogue conducted by two earthly scientists who also happen to be music lovers. The dialogue. Is history pre-recorded? Is DNA already laid into place? But even if a man with a known number of CDs in his collection isn't positive which one he will be playing at 10:45 next Friday morning. At a particular cellular level, one little nucleus made this note. Here, in the wide open land, there is room for any and everything, except, of course, freedom of will or anything else like that. Life immediately made his neighboring counterpart shout him down and into renewed silence about the matter. Education. If it were a sexual matter, then in the area of S&M, it would be M. Well, you don't know. I even made that one simpler. So, what are you going to do? Warning to man, and free at that. If you can think, you will think. So watch it. Note, if there is an ordinary person out there who immediately grasps the practical significance of this, note, you're no longer totally ordinary. And some people who live over by the gingerbread house respond, you're just saying that to make us feel good. Query, what does being ordinary have to do with feeling good? And oh yeah, in the contest of who's the stupidest, those who give warnings or those who take them seriously, you'll be glad to know that they're both winners. You wieners. And now, the bonus round question. What is more useful than literate, sophisticated, insightful sarcasm? Pretend literate, sophisticated, etc. sarcasm. Hey, viewer writes, would you repeat again how it doesn't much matter what you do in life as long as you don't take it seriously? Certainly. Cosmic destiny has arranged it so that extremely perceptive and potentially mystical people all have minor facial imperfections, financial difficulties, and several pressing personal problems. The viewer did not take time out of his busy life and schedule to thank me for saying this, since he knew that I'd know anyway how much he'd appreciate it. Do you know why the little stories I make up seem so funny? Like about the man who believed he had a brain tumor only to be told, "Why, you old silly, that's your brain." Well, they're funny for two reasons. One is because they're not funny. And the other is because of what position a man might be in relative to his own consciousness if he treated his routine cerebral operations as though they were no more than symptomatic of a non-lethal, highly irrelevant, tumorous condition, apart from which one may still consciously carry on quite nicely. The great mortal exterminator proclaimed, "I shall never rest these until all roaches, rats, and other forms of vermin, and irritants are eradicated from the life of man." Note, the great exterminator will never rest. Vermin. The older, the less potent, the more exhausted becomes a magazine or a man, the more they begin to indulge in editorial self-reference. Ad vomitum. Nobody else is going to come up with new Latin terms. It's up to some of us. The more they begin to indulge in editorial self-reference, ad vomitum. One man's genetic patterns passing itself off as his grandfather responds, "If you properly cared for me, you would not attack me for getting old." To which the man replies, "And if you were a proper pair of them, you would never get old." An excellent aspect of the game of intellectual gotcha is that there is no place to hide and you can always be it. Yeah, I know, ordinary, regular people won't see how this constitutes much of an excellent aspect. I know. I know. If you externally objectify these kinds of extraordinary forays into the future of man's nervous system, such as calling them God, it makes it easier not to make the necessary efforts, in that you can then act as though there is something outside of you that can do it for you. On a certain inhabited planet in another solar system, their technology has progressed to the point that electronic voice simulation can be run from a microscopically small chip, such that, for example, once seated in your automobile, such a digitally controlled full voice can be programmed to say, "Did you remember to fasten your safety belt?" But after some years of such use, they discovered that mechanical built-in reminders work best if not limited to a single direct question or suggestion, but rather were divided into several such verbal intrusions, like having your car say, "Did you remember to fasten your safety belt?" "Oh yes, well I guess you did." "Well, am I wrong? I thought you secured it." "Well, you'd be the one to know for certain, and I'm sure you'll do the right thing." This new, diffused, less specific approach has worked so well in consumer areas that there is now talk of trying to apply it to how the creatures there go about the job of thinking. Fiction. What people write and live when they don't know what else to do. Plagiarism. What they used to call fiction and the lives most people led. Ho, 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 you little sleepyheads. It's moving right up on 7:30 in the old AM. And this is your big-time, bright-eyed, good morning Sunrise FM buddy, TJ the DJ, getting ready to play for you that bristling, bubbling, bust-out Top 40 smash, Time Is On My Side, which will be followed by this week's pick hit, Space Is On My Side. After which we'll play the old listeners call-in quiz game. And the question of the day is, what comes after those two? Ho, 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 up and at 'em, you little sleepy-headed rascals. The once possible title for this item could have been, "Practice Makes Perfect, the Perfect Don't Practice." One man One man meditated while moving, chanted while silent, danced while still, fasted while eating, and prayed while cursing. He may not have yet been perfect, but at least he wasn't routine. And this letter into the show to one of our favorite correspondents here. Dear Advice Doctor, should a man be continually struggling against all habit? Dear viewer, haven't you written to me about this before? Truth in advertising, viewers note. The doctor himself writes the letters he receives. Same as with you. An ordinary man has real difficulty in perceiving any allegorical information regarding one's place of residence if you use his house as an example. Yet another reason that you shouldn't live anywhere in particular. If the mind is middle class, then expanded consciousness would be like the world's richest hobo. Troubadour's tip. Rest where you like, but don't stay nowhere. It costs too much. And even you ain't that rich. On this one world, on Life Appreciation Day, all the creatures would form a gigantic parade and march away singing, "Ah, we are in life and welded to life." All did except for a few who wouldn't get in line and march, and about whom I shall say no more at this time. The reason that man so cherishes the idea of telling the future is because he obviously can't tell the present. Yeah. And a viewer writes, again, may I express my personal appreciation for the times when you will present an item like the above and then not say that some viewer wrote in to say that it damn near made sense. I'm sure you must mean well with this attempt, but I still find it most off-putting. And now that I think about it, I wonder why that is. But please do not bother to answer that for me just now, yours, etc. The king of this newly developed area of one Ural kingdom one day said to his minister of the arts, when it comes to the people in religion, I don't care who they worship. They can worship a chicken for all I care, just as long as it is not one of my opponent's chickens. Once the arts became public property rather than royal, the arts changed. Update. Remember now, if you're still selling and hoping they're buying, keep acting royal sincere. You hear? The song of the non-wild stay-at-home goose. Feeling happy and content makes me edgy. Through the continuation and increase of routine thought, life does not expect man to make things either better or worse, just more complicated. An attentive viewer inquires, is there an operative distinction between things being more complicated and them being more complex? In an area overall related to several others we've mentioned earlier tonight, colon. You do realize that men don't really care what religion they follow or under which type of government they live, just so long as they have something to argue about. What is the danger of allegories, metaphors, symbolism, and humor? Answer. That the intellectual consideration of them will keep you from the experience of allegories, metaphors, symbolism, and humor. Yeah, but in a certain way, isn't that the danger in everything? Yes, particularly if the, in a certain way you mentioned, happens to involve in some fashion being a human being with a normally functioning mind. Yeah, but isn't that itself a mite discouraging? Did Mr. Sears find it disconcerting to have as his partner in Sears and Roebuck, Mr. Roebuck? It is operationally too simplistic to conceive of the mind as the enemy. For after all, what real adversary would daily furnish you with fresh supplies and ammunition? If you were but sufficiently alert to recognize them as such. Remember, men, don't shoot until you see the white of their gray cells. Once a man with the potential to ever be more conscious realizes what it's all about, he has to kind of take a small step backwards for a moment and personally relive the entire history of man real quick. Those who feel inferior always eventually resort to insults. Just look at your routine relationship to life. The trick of using the unique power of hormonal energy for expanded purposes is to be able to be pissed without getting angry. Hey, dig it, Erasmus Jr. By the time you criticize something, it's already too late. A more alert man's son one day said to him, "My foot hurts." And the father said, "Where?" And the boy pointed and replied, "Right here." And the man said, "Then that's exactly the part you should walk on." No, make that run on. The conscious man's credo: a mind not Tefloned is not fit having. A little piece from the last time that we were chatting, I guess you could call it. Tied to some of this. I was pointing out that someone who understood something in a non-standard way, that you could have everyone in the world who believed that they had intellectual problems, psychological problems, so as not to tort ourselves nor their words forever, they simply show up somewhere, they hope. Years ago at a church or a synagogue, and now to a psychologist or a counselor, saying, "My mind is driving me nuts." And I said that the one unsolicited, unsuitable answer for ordinary people, if they wanted to actually be, what do they call it, cured, like a ham, then they would seek out someone, let's say me, just using me as a non-personal example, and I'd simply tell them the truth if they could hear it. What do you mean your mind's driving you crazy? Do I hear the inflection in your voice that you're attempting to convey some complaint? And they would say, "Well, certainly." And I would have to point out to them, "You seem to have missed the point, dear sir, madam. The point of having the mind is to drive you crazy." Next. Bring in somebody that's got transmission problems or a paper cut on their tongue, something serious. And you've had a few hours to chuckle and laugh or ignore that. But now consider, to bring in, since I've already brought them up, bankers, bartenders, marriage counselors. I said psychologists, but I like marriage counselors. Well, I was thinking my own joke about some horrible contest at a party. Never mind. A door prize. You don't hear about it. What is everyone at the ordinary level seeking the services of a bartender, of a banker, of a psychologist? They're doing it on the basis of, my mind is driving me crazy. How about the rest of them? Attorneys? Since I brought that up, and we've been talking about something in general anyway, I assume, surely, that all of you have heard years and years of attorney jokes, and attorneys have been historically victim or target of much displeasure by society. Why might that be? You could come up with obvious answers that would probably please a lot of bar associations. They'd probably want to adopt it. Let me tell you the real one. The reason is they are almost the primo example. Wait, let's slip up. from the kind of view we've been talking about that all of you should understand without there being any criticism involved, that civilization itself, everyday affairs of man, the whole world, everything post-survival, we could look at as being unnecessary. And from a certain view, a fraud. A faux life. Just, mostly bullshit. Although you got to do something. If you're an ordinary person, you got to live here for 67 or 70 years without going totally nuts. So you got to do something, right? So you take civilization seriously. You're supposed to. But in a sense, insofar as actually surviving, it is irrelevant. It's made up, it's invented, that's not an attack, it's simply a fact. Attorneys represent almost the crowning glory that they're the ones defending, upholding the avant-garde, the rear guard, the palace guard of that which doesn't exist. And you have to pay them. Some years past, and a few people's IQ had been, if your perception was lower, it would have been easier, which they've also, as you surely know, religion, priests, rabbis, everybody's been attacked probably more vehemently than attorneys. But nowadays, it's just off the subject, sort of, but attorneys are a perfect example. If you understand, if you look at civilization, the everyday affairs of man, within that, if you look at that to start with, that from one quite, it's no longer operative, you all know that, but from one quite real view, the whole area of man's civilization, from the line of the cerebral cortex, from consciousness up, is in a sense irrelevant. Just bullshit. I mean, it's serious bullshit, but it's just bullshit. Within that, discounting religion, which has kind of had its salad days already, but discounting that, what represents, if you want a poster boy for absolute bullshit, or the apparent, the specious seriousness of civilization, would be the area of jurisprudence. Passing laws. All kinds of things. You cannot buy beer on Sunday, or you cannot buy potted meat on a Wednesday outside the incorporated limits of Muncie, Indiana. I mean, just idiocy from one view. But you can look at that as being the crowning achievement, with a certain amount of dramatic sarcasm intended, but it is the crowning achievement of that which is absolutely useless. I mean, if civilization is useless, what's more useless than the laws of civilization? Now, we're not talking about the laws of the jungle, and we're not even talking about the laws of civilization that reflect the laws of the jungle, like thou shalt not kill. Well, that's not a law. If you kill, we'll kill you. That's a law. We're not counting those. It's the rest of them. About usury laws. If they wanted to do that, it would just be anyone who wants to be a banker should be shot when they're before the age of 12. It's just the area of jurisprudence, the legal area. I'm telling you, because they've been wrestling trying to figure out why everybody hates attorneys, and I'm telling you why, throughout the world, is because they are, there it is, you've already got an area, a neighbor sues you, something happens that you just consider, from your view, is just absolute insanity that it happens to people. You get caught up with the government, you get caught up with a tax problem, you get caught up with something, and let's say that you're still fairly sane, a middle-class, ordinary person, and one of your first feelings is, if I get out of this, I'm going to sell everything, I'm going to get rid of everything I got, and I'm going to move up in a cave somewhere. This is insanity, especially if you're 40, 50 years old and over your great horny spree. You think you're getting wise and you're just dying. But at any rate, and you can go, this civilization is no deal. This is no bargain. And there you are trying to get out of this. Some unjust, some unfair, unjust attack on you that must be defended. You can't just walk away from it. What do you have to do? Here it is, as far as you're concerned, you have been drawn into a spurious battle. Absolutely. Enough to make you say, literally, if I get out of this, damn, I'm leaving. Screw taxes, I just won't have any income. I'd rather go live in a tree. This is crazy. What you got to do to get out of this craziness, just to survive? You have to go pay an attorney. You understand? It's like you got a fake illness and you know it. And you have to go pay this fake doctor to come in, and do fake things like, a little wooden knife. He lays you down, he cuts, and he does this. And he says, well, now you feel better. Those of you who don't know, sit there in the court, And there they talk, and they go through this, and you realize, well, it's like some sort of mating dance between these attorneys and the judge and the whole judicial system. It's like flamingos, and they go, and they're saying things, and you know they're speaking your language, English or Italian, and you think they're speaking my language, but this is insane. Except you have to do it. And a good one gets a couple hundred an hour at least, and you think, what is this? Anyway, we were talking about, besides them, I threw in my little semi-humorous intro that we could also include every time I come up with examples, and I just continue to pull them out because everyone seems to like attorney jokes so much, and they're one of the easy targets today. But you could pull in anybody, and I just listed some, fortuitously enough, as fast as I could talk and think. Bankers, dentists. Dentist was kind of a cheap shot. But bankers, insurance agents, bartenders, cops, psychologists, admin, copywriters, salesmen of all types. It's all the same thing. Think about all those. In case you think that they did just kind of spring from my head, I could almost pull out a book of listings of occupations under the government's labor department. But those right there, they're all the same thing. Leave out dentists. But the rest of them, what are they doing? Bartenders, bankers, psychologists. I left out the obvious of all men of the cloth, all religious people. But what they represent, whether it be on a single basis like a bartender, of course he's representing the bar, but a bartender all the way to larger institutions of a banker representing the whole fiscal structure of a country or a locale, or a religious man representing the whole institutionality of that religion. They are there doing one thing, what? Is you going and saying, life is driving me nuts. Which is a variation, my mind's driving me nuts, because life's not driving you nuts. People say that, but you're back to one I didn't pull out of a guy who began to consider the difference between wants and needs, which is one way to talk about the hungers, the hormonal hungers, the neural hungers, or to talk about that there are calls that one gets. Down the old nervous system, the way I draw it, the level of consciousness, from there up, in the sense that we're talking about now, which is not completely invalid to discuss, but from here up you could say is the world of needs. And down here is the world of wants. But this is real life. That is just the survival. It's not the kind of life anybody wants to lead now. It's not the kind of life that is natural. It's not the kind of life that life approves of. It doesn't need that level anymore. You see what did the dinosaurs. Those of you that have been considering going into the dentistry or the ministry. When life gets tired of using somebody, life don't fool around. When you get pink slip, when you get cashiered, notice, dinosaurs just... it wasn't a slow thing. It wasn't like attrition like life. So, well, some of you dinosaurs now are, getting close to 65. If you'll retire early, we'll up your pension. Life looks around and got no more use for a certain breed, brand, model. You gone. At any rate, you could look at, you remember the guy that said after he considered the two spheres of wants and needs, which you can look at as being post-survival, pre-survival. You can look at it as being hormonal. You can look at it as being neural. You can look at it as being the life of the civilized man and the life of a feral man. He pointed out that when it came to, for instance, physical, the reaction to physical calls like from the stomach, which would be down below at the world of wants, you can obviously satisfy it. But he pointed out that the more he thought about it, it seemed like, because it's now an intellectual, civilized man doing the describing, that's who I wrote it about, he had to be or he couldn't have said anything. He said that insofar as responding to the call, for instance, of the stomach, just ordinary physical hunger, that there are two ways to respond. You can fill it. That is, you're actually hungry. We're not talking about any sort of weird thing that, psychologists, that you got some kind of phantom hunger because you're trying to get even with an uncle, that had red hair, I don't know, and lived in your attic. I'm talking about you're actually hungry and you're just on the run and you just grab something. You can just stuff your stomach till you get full. That's something you might not even care for. Oh, you look around, you're visiting somebody, you're babysitting, or you look, and all they got is a bag of rutabagas. And you're in a hurry, so you just eat rutabaga, and you can get the stomach full. You can satisfy the want. So the guy pointed out, he said that there seem to be two ways, such as responding to the call of the stomach. You can satisfy it by getting it full, or the alternative is you can try and satisfy you. Now what this gets into, the easy one, I guess I made it uneasy with all that. It's like people, the idea of comfort food, or the idea that you're sitting around and for whatever reason, I'm not trying to get into psychological bullshit because we already talked about bullshit in general. So I'm not trying to insinuate anything, of course, but it's like sitting around, and whether you're hungry or not, you just, not much to do. Maybe you're watching TV and it shows a brand new flavor of ice cream. They say it's double rich, and you suddenly think, well, I'm not doing anything else. And you suddenly think, I'd like some ice cream. And the point is your stomach didn't really call. You understand? It's just, and by the same token, your stomach could have been calling in my early example, and you filled it up with rutabagas. And your stomach quit calling. So you finished off the rutabagas, and it was time you could go somewhere else, and 10 minutes later, sometime later, you're driving along, but you are not satisfied. You understand? For whatever reason, you can be saying, I hate rutabagas. It was the only thing they had in the house where you were visiting. Or driving along 10 minutes later, you hear on the radio an ad for this new ice cream. And you think, oh boy. No, your stomach was full, but you weren't satisfied. That's an old story. But then the man said to himself, was there something similar in the feeding of one's mind? I threw in a zinger, if you recall. I said that he thought about it and decided, nah. I was supposed to catch some of you that were going to let your mind drift off like you knew the answer. Oh, I know where that's going. But think about it. What is education? Except the M and S&M if education had a sexual orientation. What I was going to do, dom/sub, those kind of ads for sexual fun, that if that was the case, education would have been the sub. In other words, I'm here to be educated. We'll take the position. You can ordinarily fill the mind, but does it satisfy people? It's not supposed to. But with you, we're assuming that it's people who might be able to consider things from a wider perspective. You can never fill the mind with enough of the ordinary food available, rutabagas. I don't care if it's rutabagas from Harvard. It will fill the mind. You can finally get to the point, as many people do, that they feel around, maybe they get their master's. And at one time they dreamed of having a PhD, and they thought, Jesus, if I see the inside of another classroom, I'll fall into sickness ad vomitum, ad infinitum, ad vomitum infinitum. Now I got a whole new one, another one. In other words, I can't stand anymore. Because it does not satisfy the person. It's not supposed to, or we'd all be dead. Humanity would be dead. We would be out there with Elvis and the dinosaurs, wherever they are. So, people end up, within the closed system of civilization, they can fill the mind with rutabagas. They can fill it with ordinary education. It doesn't have to be just Harvard. It doesn't have to be academic. It can be just conventional wisdom. It can be religious ideas. It can be your own daydreams. But it never satisfies. And at varying moments, people, without considering themselves at all intellectually or mentally unstable, will admit, sometimes I feel like I am going nuts. I mean, psychiatrists will say that, as if that proved anything. At any rate, ordinary people will say, well, sometimes I think, life's going to drive me nuts. And they just say that. And then what they do, even if they are not in a paying situation with professional situation, not professional analyzation of some kind or counseling, they will seek out help. They will go to a bar. They'll talk to a friend. They'll call an attorney. I'm not going to stop and explain that one. They will go take out, in case you thought that I slipped up putting bankers in there, they'll go and try to get a loan to do what? Oh, I don't know. I think I'll buy something. Something good. Something I've always wanted. Something besides goddamn rutabagas. And of course that person, Oldsmobiles, Buicks, may represent rutabagas. The man finally thinks, life is just, I'll go take out a loan and get a Ferrari. I will satisfy me rather than just fill my stomach. At least you didn't let me down completely. I'm not going to reread the whole thing. This is a segue. That was just a dash. Don't lose your place. This long one about the other planet where they had the microscopic chip technology down to the point, etc., which we have here, of course, but it says on another planet so that you can think, well, at least they're not talking about me. And how it was, you remember, it's long and complicated. It was hate to brag, but a nice piece of work. If you got the point. That rather than you just sit down in your car, I could have done, the computer itself. You could, when you start to leave, a voice in your house now says, from the computer perhaps said, did you remember to cut me off? Or you start to leave the house now, they've been threatening to have houses they'll talk to you, little mics, little speakers around like the front or back door. When you go out, it says, did you turn off all of the appliances? Did you turn down the heat? But like the car, you sit down, and of course this is already going on. It was, I don't know whether they stopped it. I think enough people went nuts, but for a while they were doing this thing. As you'd go in and your car would say, did you fasten your seatbelt? Or when you'd leave it'd say, did you turn off the lights? So, remember this, and it pointed out that they found out though after years of using this, that they could do it and no problem. Which we can do that now on this planet, But they found out that it worked better when you had this mechanical, built-in reminding system of some sort, whatever it was. And start using your allegorical, metaphorical abilities now, folks, so I don't have to do it for you. But they found rather than just sitting in your car, as important as it seems for your safety, rather than just this voice going, did you remember to fasten your seatbelt? Rather than that, they found that it was much more efficient. It worked better. People responded in a more positive way. If, instead of just a direct question or a suggestion, like, please fasten, rather than that, was it went at it from several different ways. That the voice would say, you got in, you sit down, you turn the key, and the voice says, did you remember to fasten your safety belt? Oh, I'm sorry, I see that you did. Well, you did get completely secured, didn't you? Did I hear the click? Well, now you knew what to do anyway. I'm sure you're looking after your own best interest. You're an intelligent person, aren't you? All right, now you understand. I know I had to pause there because so many of you were guffawing and all that originally, but that was just the first paragraph. Then down here it says, this new, diffused, less specific approach to dealing with people worked so well on that planet that they began considering, could it be taken from the area of consumerism, just a commercial consumer application, and in some way use it to get the creatures there, thinking creatures, to use it in the way in which they approach the job of thinking. Does anyone see that related? That you go into a psychiatrist, you go into a priest or a rabbi or a counselor or a bartender, and you go, my mind is driving me crazy. Or life is not suiting me. And the banker says, well, hey, what you need is a big-time loan. Or the bartender, well, what you need is a double. Or a priest says, well, what you need is a good whipping. your hand out. Now, see, as always, it's a two-way dance. It's not that there's any sort of institutional conspiracy going on, because you have to dance with it. You have to go there and ask them to dance. Other than that one funny church with the guys on the bicycles, they don't actually come to your house anymore trying to get you to. So, psychiatrists, thanks to professional canons of ethics, psychiatrists and attorneys at least don't come around your house either going, don't you need an attorney? Don't you need a psychiatrist? So, or bartenders, most states have laws against, bartenders can't come around and knock on your door and say, hey, we got a special margaritas. I got some with me. No. So you have to go seek them out. Don't blame them. But here it is. Don't lose your place back to the voice simulators. See, they found what worked. Technology got to the point. May I ask one more time, please jump on the allegorical bandwagon real quick, because I'm not talking about cars and technology and the chips, although I am. Is why it's actually symbolism rather than metaphor. But leave that as it be. The voice says, remember, I want to push this because it was a good one. Good and civilized, and probably make a bunch of you sick. Who wants a goddamn voice in your car telling you what to do anyway? How about that? But there it is. It's for your good. It's for your safety. Because nowadays it's considered. And they can even do it worse than that now to show you how life works with man. Because for a while, that was nothing new. There's been a bunch of smart-ass people around going, I ain't going to wear no helmet on a motorcycle. It's my business. If I have a wreck, that breaks my skull, it's my problem. Don't the state be telling me what to do. That almost had life for a little while, that kind of thing. But then it only took a few days, and somebody stood up and said, that almost worked, Charlie, except for this. Guys like you that would go out and have a wreck, ride a motorcycle, have a wreck, hurt your head. You say, it didn't hurt anybody but you. You end up in a charity ward at this hospital down here in the city, and it's us, middle-class, decent people, that got to pay $200,000 or $300,000 to get you back on your feet. And you live another 50 years walking around looking like a, half brain dead, as if we could tell after that. Back to where we were. The voice, you understand, it's not an attack on civilization, etc. I was just trying to get you to see again that no matter what you do, no matter how you try to spar with life, and you go, hey, don't be telling me I got to wear a helmet. Don't tell me. I don't need a stunt. Where's that thing under the dice? I'll pull it out. I'm going to hear some voice going, fake voice. It's not even like a good-looking chick in the back seat going, hey, you put on your, it's a voice coming out of a microchip going, did you remember too fast? Where is that? I'll rip it out. Look at it another way. You try to do that, but life says, no, it's for your benefit. It's for everyone's benefit. If you don't care about you, think about, you might have somebody else in the car and hurt them, a little innocent child and all that. And if you're an innocent middle-class person, they finally you're the point you think, shit, all right, I ain't going to argue with it. Instead of voice saying that which would seem to be good, and instead of seatbelt, do I have to do the rest? Think about all the possible religious. If we don't forget to blank your blank belt, take it out and let's make, the voice says, don't forget to blank, 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 blank. Just fill in something. Take the world of religion, mental health, all sorts of things. Regular health. Don't forget to exercise, eat some roughage, whatever the hell it is. But the voice, after they found that they had this mechanical built in, it's what you got to remember now. It's why the symbolism works, if it's working with you. They've already got it built into this car. Back to the car now, like that's what we're really talking about. You paid for it, you got it, and it's built in. You didn't ask for it, it's built in. Let's assume they've passed regulation. You sit down and you turn the key and you can't stop it. You can't even find where it is. The voice immediately says, this fake voice, mechanical, built into the piece of equipment. Symbolism. Metaphor. Either one, damn it. Whatever works. Whatever you can swallow right now. The voice says, for your good. You can't deny it at the ordinary level. The voice says, did you fasten your safety belt? after some time of using this, they found that there was an improved way. And you think, well, what could be improved? Assuming that was a worthwhile boon to the general public. What could be better than the voice saying that? They concluded that a better approach rather than a direct suggestion or question, which the question of did you fasten is actually a suggestion, of course, but rather than just a point blank, right to the point, was to take several kind of diffused, just sort of talking around it, kind of vague. Not, like, well, I did go so far as in the alternative, the new version, the voice does start off and it says, did you remember to fasten your safety belt? Oh, well, I believe you did. And there you sit, and it goes, well, I thought you did. I heard a click. Did you get good and secure? Oh, I'm sure you did. I mean, you would look after your own best interest. You'd do the right thing, now wouldn't you? Now think about there you sit. Now can we jump again as quickly as possible, which has to be that quick, from cars and etc. Does that sound familiar at all? Well, let me ask you that. Well, it's not. I know some of you don't keep up with technology and automotive things, but how about does this word ring a bell? Well, or those of you that get fancier with it. You haven't ever noticed every morning you get up? I mean, you don't have to go out and sit in a car. You don't have to sit in bed. You just open one eye, and it says, have you fastened your safety belt? Of course, what it's really saying is, this is the flies talking. You got the fly paper ready? And you open up your head. Well, you listen. It doesn't matter what you say as long as you say something to it like, won't you shut up? Which is just as smart, by the way, just as insightful as you walking down the street and you see a guy sitting in his car and you wonder what he's doing, and he's talking to the voice in his car like, shut up! Don't ask me about my damn safety belt. I tore it out. I'm not going to wear it. Will you shut up, you fake voice? And you could walk by seeing this guy in his car with the windows rolled up thinking, what is it? Cheap shot. Because every morning, all ordinary people wake up and the same thing. It's a built-in mechanical voice for your own good, though, damn it. And after that, what it says, I just got to start making it up. It might be saying the last thing you thought in a dream. It could be saying one of the things that you were still steamed about from last night, when that girl stood you up, that guy insulted you in a bar, your boss made you mad, whatever it was. You're going, blah, 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 blah. And if you could get outside yourself and walk by, you might as well be seeing somebody sing alone in a car, the windows rolled up, you can't see, and they're going, wouldn't you? Well, sure you would. You think, God almighty, is that man nuts? Thankfully, life in its great charitable wisdom sees to it that man's head, this general region, is not transparent. I mean, even bald-headed people, it's still opaque to where others can't walk by you and see inside that they see you're going. Nah, so you stand there and you appear to be seen. Somebody's talking to you at a party or something. Listen, what do you think that anything can ever be settled in that unpleasantness in the former Yugoslavia? And you go, do you really think that interest rates are going to continue to go down? It's just lucky they can't see inside your brain. Of course, we're going to talk about real luck. And serendipity is that ordinary people do not awaken each morning, much less throughout the day, but awake in the morning and see themselves. That is, that they can turn around and look inside their own car window, and there it is, these voices going on. Oh, I'm sorry. Having these thoughts. I keep... And people going, yes, my name's Flypaper. What's it to you? Which, anytime, if you, those of you that liked that the other night, I still didn't get around the conscious man's credo. I guess I'll finish. But I think how silly it is, you thought, to see this guy sitting in a car with the windows rolled up, screaming and hollering something, and you look and there's nobody in there but him. There's nobody in there but you, except you don't realize you take it just as seriously as this Dumbo is a chip somewhere in the dice of this voice. It's not even a human. It's not even a person. It's this voice, which, of course, if you talk to them, they might even say, well, that makes it worse. Think about that one. So that makes it even worse because it's this little old mechanical that goes, and it never changes. Same inflection or lack thereof. No passion. It just says, did you remember to fasten your seat? It's driving me goddamn crazy. Oh, are we talking about the voice in the car, the thing, or the chip, or the mind? I got lost when I was talking. Which was I talking about? I wanted to see if you'd fall for it. We'll leave, since I didn't get around to it, with the last one of the items tonight that gave as a counterpoint, if not a reaction, which is not a reaction. Yeah, it is. I can do that since I made the action. I can make the reaction. It was listed as the conscious man's credo. Are you ready? Could I have a flat? G. Okay. Conscious man. A flat. A conscious man's credo. Well, you may not think it makes any difference, and it doesn't. But a conscious man's credo. Are you ready? A mind not Tefloned is not fit having.